A woman woke up after a medical procedure and over the following weeks became someone her family didn't fully recognize. Not worse, not better, just different. Her doctors had only changed one thing about her. They'd given her someone else's gut bacteria. In the world of medicine, a fecal microbiota transplant, a procedure where one person's gut bacteria is transferred to another, has been used for decades to treat a vicious intestinal infection called C. difficile. The science was settled, the transplant worked, patients recovered, case closed. Except, doctors started noticing things they couldn't explain. A woman in her 50s received a transplant from her overweight daughter. Within months, she had gained significant weight, despite no change in her diet. A man who'd been anxious and withdrawn his whole life received bacteria from a donor his family described as warm, sociable, easy in a crowd. His wife was the first to say it out loud. He's different. Not sick different, just different. These were anecdotes. Medicine doesn't run on anecdotes, but there were too many of them, and they were too specific, and eventually, they couldn't be ignored. The gut and the brain are in constant conversation. They're connected by the vagus nerve, a long, winding highway of nerve fibers that runs from the brainstem all the way down to the abdomen. And the signal doesn't just flow one way, downward, brain to gut. Roughly 80% of the traffic runs the other direction, upward, from the gut to the brain. What the gut sends depends almost entirely on what's living in it. Certain bacterial species produce serotonin, the same neurotransmitter that antidepressants try to regulate. Others produce GABA, the brain's primary calming signal. Some produce molecules that appear to directly influence the amygdala, the part of the brain that governs fear, aggression, and how we respond to other people. Put simply, the bacteria in your gut are, in some measurable sense, participating in your emotional life, not causing it, participating. The distinction matters, and the line between them is exactly where the science gets uncomfortable. To understand this from the inside, researcher Dr. Aimee Martinez agreed to something unusual. She would have her gut microbiome, her complete internal ecosystem, analyzed and profiled. Baseline personality assessments, measures of anxiety, sociability, stress response, emotional openness. Then she would spend 30 days on a precisely controlled dietary intervention, fermented foods, specific fibers, compounds known to alter microbial balance. And then she'd be tested again. She told us she expected nothing dramatic. "I'm a scientist," she said, sitting in her lab, surrounded by petri dishes and centrifuges. "I know how to separate what I want to be true from what the data says." I was ready to be underwhelmed. On day 17, she called her mother for the first time in 3 months, unprompted. She wasn't sure why. She just felt like she wanted to. The personality instruments at day 30 showed measurable increases in openness and decreases in trait anxiety. Her microbiome profile had shifted significantly. The species associated with social behavior had grown. The ones associated with inflammation and cortisol response had receded. She was careful, precise, almost defensive in how she discussed the results. "I'm not saying the bacteria made me call my mother. I'm saying something changed, and the bacteria changed too. And I don't know how to fully separate those two things. And that's what we need to figure out." Science is built on the premise that the self is located somewhere specific, in the brain, in the mind, in the neurons that fire when you recognize your own face in a mirror. But what if the self is also distributed? What if who you are, your mood, your fears, your willingness to reach out to someone you love, is partly assembled, moment to moment, by organisms you've never thought about, never named, and mostly never knew existed? What if, in some small but real way, you have never been entirely alone in your own body?